Reporting live from Sourwood Farm.
Hey, this is Ryan Williamson and daughter Kaya, and we're about to check on this bee yard here. These are mostly experimental colonies. We've got about 32 colonies. We'll see mid-February is Valentine's Day, and I haven't been here for a while, so we're just going to see who's alive, who needs food. Hopefully do almost nothing to most of them. We'll find out. So look, I'm going to pass the phone over to her, and she's going to do the recording here. Here you go. Okay, so we're gonna check in. And packing forgot my bee suit, so it's gonna be a little risky, but we have a smoker going, so hopefully that'll help. Test how gentle these bees are. And this one is a colony that hasn't been treated. They look alive. They feel heavy. I feel like that is actually enough. I don't think I need to do any more. So there's bees up top. So this kind of gives me an idea. It's a warm day, but not super warm. I don't want to bother them any more than I need to. This is one of my experimental lids that I'm really liking, where it's funky looking insulation, but I've got about 2 inches of insulation recycled. Nice thing. Gives me a feeder shim here so I can put fondant or something under this plastic. Let's see. So this colony had fondant and they ate it all. And a little smoke. They actually feel extremely heavy, so I'm just going to leave them as it is. We did bring fondant, so if anybody's hungry, we can give it to them. So winter checks can be very quick. You mind moving back a little bit? We're going to check. This one doesn't have much activity, so a little more worrisome. You have lots of stores up top. I see bees walking around. I know they have enough food, so cluster looks alive. We're going to close it back up. We don't want to disturb them any more than we need to. Let's check on this one. Cluster's alive. There's bees up here getting food. I'm going to do a tip. Yep, they're heavy. So up to this point, I actually haven't even been taking off lids for winter checks, just mainly doing tips for weight. If they feel heavy enough, I don't even bother with taking the lid off. But if they're light, then yes, I take the lid off and check on them further. And here, back up a little bit so you can show me too. Let's see what's going on in here. Clusters there. See how heavy they are. Yep, they're alive. Very, very heavy. No need to disturb them more than that. They've got everything they need. I'm going to guess about 2 weeks from maple bloom. So right now we don't have much natural pollen. They're probably brooding up a tiny bit just based off their own food reserves, but not much. And I could stimulate them to brood up earlier by feeding the fondant and also pollen. I don't necessarily need or want to do that. This is a colony. These are colonies for honey production and for testing genetics. I'm not planning on making many splits here, so I don't want them to go big booming and then have swarm issues. Well, let's check on another one. Do a weight check. Oh, very heavy. Good size cluster up top. We're good to go. Okay, I think of the ones we've checked, one of them was treated. All the rest have been treatment free. This one's a little more interesting. I see an A here, which means I have determined at one point that it was slightly aggressive. One of my experimental lids with the foam. I'm going to be making much more of these because I like them. And let's see what they've eaten of the fondant. Nice size cluster. This colony got its last treatment in 2023, and that's not looking too bad. But they're a little bit lighter, so we're going to add some more food. They haven't quite finished this fondant off, but they've gotten the liquids off. And that makes me think that they could use a little more. You can see, that's a kind of neat pattern. They've left the granulated sugar, but they pulled off everything that they liked. So I'm going to smoke them down. Glad they're not being too aggressive. And then I've got fondant. This time I went through and sliced it at home into slabs. And hopefully this will be easier to deploy. I put a little bit of pollen sub on it because it was a little liquidy. Just kind of like baking hygiene. Make it easier to knead bread if you put a little flour down. That was my thought. I figured they could use a little protein. Let's see. I don't want to squish bees. And they're not wanting to go down quite as much as I hoped. Maybe if I move this over, then I can quickly put this paper down. Rub a little bit to get them to move. This little bit chunk of fondant here is a little thick, and I'm worried that's my shim, and this insulated lid is maybe not big enough. So skinny that fondant up a little bit. There we go. What I like about this is now we're going to put the Reflectix down, which is a bit of insulation. So it helps keep the humidity up. We're going for a sealed environment. And then this insulated lid, I've got about 2 inches of foam, a nice feeding shim. We're going to put that on now. Squish it all down. There we go. Longest check so far, and that still wasn't too long, was it? Let's go on to the next one. Expecting to have at least one mortality in this bee yard. Hey. Oh, that feels pretty heavy though, so I don't know. A little on the edge. Population's right here at the top. Shoot, got food here. We'll give them a little bit. There are a few small hive beetles. They're up there hiding in that crack between the. Here, we'll show a few more. Oh, there's one right there. Between the fabric, I squished it. Between the fabric and the top bar, the bees can't police, and so that's where the hive beetles are hanging out. Grab a slab of fondant. Back on, keep on rolling. How long does it take to inspect 32 colonies? I didn't intend to grow this year or last year, but I grew, and it's a medium-sized cluster, not huge. We've got about 3 frames of bees up in the honey band, so I'm guessing there's more down below. Oh, moved them a little bit too much, but very heavy. Check on this colony here. This one normally don't smoke quite as heavily, but since I don't have a bee suit, I'm going to be careful. There's the cluster from the honey band. That's good. See how heavy they are. That's my number. Ooh, rock solid heavy. That's my number 37 breeder. They got their last treatment in 2023. Still rocking strong. Like that colony a lot, very gentle. I made 5 supers of honey last year and stored a little bit. This one, oh, they got the lid down. This is an 8 frame. I don't have much 8 frame equipment. Lots of bees. I'm a little worried about this one here. Let's see what the weight is. I don't have any 8 frame shims, and that feels light. Yep, so they need food, and I don't have a shim to give them fondant feeder. So what we're gonna do is put a little fondant in the over here, which is not ideal because it's not right on their cluster. Not sure how they're gonna take that down. Then we're gonna squish some fondant in the inner cover. Let me grab a slab of fondant over here. That's what we can do. This is a skinny slab, so we're gonna go mess with that skinny one right up here. The bees will take to that. Sometimes what's in the feeder, I've played around, it just turns rock hard and the bees ignore it, but we don't have much choice here. They have completely propolized this inner cover down, and I'd like to put a little fondant above it, but I don't think I can. I can't get it off. Inner cover is stuck to the lid. That's exactly what we don't want. And I'm looking for a skinny slice of fondant. There we go. So I just used a big old shovel to cut the fondant here. Shake the bees off because I don't want to squish them. Now, I'm going to do something a little risky, but I found it sometimes works well. Is I'm going to blow on these bees, and sometimes then they'll scatter, even though smoke doesn't make them scatter. See them moving? Now it's risky because I don't have a bee suit on, and there's a chance that they're going to come right back up in my face. But gentle genetics is a good thing sometimes in my favor as a beekeeper. So we're going to put this fondant on. It looks a little fat in this area, so I'm going to use the hive tool to come through and slice it down a little bit. bees just don't want these bees. So at this time of year, especially once the maples start to bloom, we get a lot of pollen, but not always enough nectar to support the brood growth. So the bees are hitting their most delicate time of the year where they're brooding up, which means that they actually are now going to increase the temperature of their brood nest from in the 60s, 70s up to the mid 90s. That takes a lot more carbohydrates. So what they're going to be doing now is everything's happening kind of against the bees in a way. Winter die-off starting to happen as the overwintered bees are aging out. They start to feed and become nurse bees. Their clock starts ticking faster and they start dying. So that's why we see dead bees out front of the colonies. So at the same time that our adult bee population is dropping, they have to do two things: feed lots of babies and keep them warm by clustering during cold nights, and they're consuming a lot more food. And so if I don't put that fondant on there on just a few of these colonies that feel weak, I could lose them. It's not necessarily their fault that maybe I didn't get them quite ready in the fall. Like, my goal is not to feed now. My goal is to have fed, if needed, enough in the fall for them to make it through this time of year. A little cluster, but they're alive and heavy. So my goal is not to feed too much, or not to have to feed now, but to have fed enough in the fall. Most of the time that is achieved, but that's super heavy. See bees coming in and out the front door, so I don't even need to take the lid off. Check on this one here. But you know, I feel like as a beekeeper, if a colony's hungry now, see, I should have smoked that. I'm acting like I have a suit on. This one has a shim, so it means I've fed it before. They ate all the fondant. Not quite sure why I fed them before, because they feel really heavy, so we're just going to leave it as is. Oh shoot, they're right there. Might as well support them a little bit, just in case. Got the fondant, too much of it actually. Come on down. Scooch them down a little bit. Well, we had a little interruption in our filming, so we're getting going again. This colony here feels a little bit weak to me as far as weight wise, so we're gonna add in. This is the first one that's really worried me a little bit. So, nice sized population, which often means they consume more food, more bodies. Grab a fondant patty. Feel like we could use a little more than that even. Let's see. Grab a little bit more out of this next patty. I do not want them to starve out. And then got double bubble insulation here. This reflects radiant heat, so this adds insulation. But I'm about to make a mistake, which is I do not want to, oh, okay, I know what I'll do. I want to put this down. We're going to put a shim here. The goal here is that the void, the airspace for the bees is less for them to maintain. So I want this as close to them as possible. It's basically going to be touching the fondant, which will help keep the fondant warm and moist. And they don't have to maintain this whole shim depth of extra airspace. And now I have a lid with bees on it. I'm just going to go ahead and give them a little shake at the entrance, and then put the lid on upside down so that the extra bees on the lid can fly home. I don't want to, if I flipped it the other way, I could trap the bees in there, and that would not be so good. Broken propel seals, so we're going to put that brick on there for weight. Oh, very heavy, so that's good. Check on this one here. Oh, very heavy. This is a colony. Because I grew so fast last year, unintentionally, I didn't really get all my ducks in a row equipment-wise. And this one here, I don't have a proper instruments reducer, so there's a good chance I've got mice action. It could use a little bit of food, so I'm going to slip past you there, Kaya, and grab a little bit more fondant. Oh, not coming out quite as easy. There we go. All right, let's see. So I've got a homemade inner cover that has a thin side and a really fat side. The fat side will accommodate. This was where I had a fondant patty before here, and you can see that they haven't chewed up this paper because there's actually a very thin bit of plastic in it. This is the bag from a sugar bag. So we're going to cut a little bit to allow the bees to get up through it, a little easier to access this fondant. The sugar bags seem to have 3 layers. These are the ones I'm currently using, 3 layers of paper, 2 are just paper, and then 1 has a little layer of plastic. So I'll take that out next time. And I'll just put this back together. They're not super hungry, but give them a little bit. Maybe that'll stimulate a little extra brood rearing, for better or worse. This one I'm a little worried about. It was sick last year, requeened. See a lot of dead bees out front. Very curious what we'll see. Ooh, very, very quiet. That's a little worrisome, but let's come in closer with the camera. If we look straight down, I see lots of bees. This medium super here was filled up by the spotted lanternfly flow, and down in there we see lots of bees. So that they actually have a whole medium super of food still. We'll go ahead and crack it just so we can show what the cluster actually looks like. Not too bad. They definitely don't need any extra help from us. If anything, I just set them back because I opened the lid and aggravated them. Oh, I told you about how I didn't have the entrance reducer on this one. You can see I had a little bit extra mesh from a unit, but just recently made up a bunch of new entrance reducers. And these are made out of oak, so don't think the mice are going to be chewing through that too easily. And yeah, now we have a new entrance reducer in there. Okay, oh, well, let's check this one here. This is one that had high mite washes. And so I did give it some treatments. Very good population of bees. That looks great. I went and opened the lid before hefting. I think they could use a little food. This smoker is not driving them down much. See the little tails coming up when I blow on them. Go away! I do not want to squish them though by adding food. I think we're like almost 60 degrees today. It's quite lovely out. Alright, I think that'll be good for them. I should get them through till maple nectar starts coming in. We'll trap some bees. We'll do that like that. So, as I'm able to get into bee yards, I'm just trying to go through. So far, after the cold snap I haven't had losses, but there's one up here that's very quiet, and this one here I'm very little concerned about. This one's also missing an entrance reducer. So, hey, you want to come over here and film this part? We're gonna rebend this piece of mesh, 1/8 inch hardware cloth, to make a good mouse-proof entrance reducer. So we'll go a little bit bigger opening than that. So there we go. Mouse could get in there though, so I'm going to center it. So now we have about a 3/8 on either side. So that's good for mice. Let's see if they're actually alive. Not much activity out the entrance, is there? Sometimes it can be deceiving though. I see bees walking around. Oh yeah, there's a nice cluster down in there. We'll leave them alone. Big old honey band, they do not need any help from me. Big cluster of bees. Oh, super heavy, I can't even lift it. I bet I could, but we're not going to. All right, let's see about this one. So this is a 10 frame lid. I've got a piece of foam. Reflectix that are actually, I'm gonna take that away. We don't need that. The Reflectix would push down and touch the lids, and then we get condensation buildup. So what I have here is a piece of an election sign which doesn't push down on the frames as much. So we should have less condensation. Looks great, lots of bees. They're alive, and they're very, very heavy. So we'll leave them alone. So mainly, I'm just looking for disasters and trying to deal with them. And then the rest of these bees, I am just checking on. This lid here has, this is a 1 foot by 2 foot floor tile. Great lids for nucs, but they weigh a lot, so we don't need a brick on them. That's good. They also means that they can mess up our hefting as far as knowing how our food stores are. Oh, just saw a mouse run by. Must have disturbed it. They're very heavy, so they don't need my help. odd combination of regular wood lid and then that sitting on top. All right, now we're last 2 hives. This is a test colony that made it up at friend's secret spot, Magic Mountain, and their last mite wash was 2, so that's good. They did not get treated last year, as most of these didn't. Let's see if they're alive or not. They are. Look at that. Small cluster in the food pan. Come in closer here. That's not much as far as bees. So that, I'm just curious. Let's just see what's going on down there. This looks like all food that they brought in during, this was a super they drew out with the spotted lanternfly flow we had. So let's see. Do we have a lot of bees or just a tiny cluster? And the only way to really tell is to break the propolis, which is maybe not a great idea, but let's just see what we have going down here. We have plenty of bees. Gave them a little smoke just so that they wouldn't come sting me. Okay, so we're good on that one. Don't need to give them anything. This is 2 colonies here. We have a tiny nuke up top and then a full size down below. I raised this queen thinking I'd requeen down below, but then down below they actually did better than I expected, so I just left her up top. So let's see what we have here. The nuke up top being just just medium frames, looks like I gave them some fondant. So we'll check on them first. Oh, they're very tiny. That's a little worrisome. See how the fondant just turned rock hard? That's not a very good promising sign. You can come in closer here. We have this little cluster. Oh, they're tiny. So I'm thinking I'm going to take off these giant rocks and give them a thinner slab of more moist fondant that they can actually work. And then that'll keep this reflectix down closer to the top bar. Because they're getting heat from down below, they're actually probably okay. Look, they have barely even touched that fondant. They do have a good amount of stores, so maybe feeding was actually not even needed with this colony. But hey, here we go. So I'm going to smoke them down a tiny bit. Give them just a little bit of soft fondant. Come on down. They just don't want to go down. A little cool wind happening now. I would think that would drive them down faster. I love the smell of a hive. Just wonderful. Now this will allow me to have that reflectance down closer to the cluster, so they don't have to eat quite as much room. Now we have 2 colonies here, so let's take off. There's their entrance here for the top one. Not much of an entrance. A little basically it's the inner cover with a notch, and then election sign is our division. So we're going to try to take that off as one unit. Are we live down below? We're live down below. At this point now I can heft. Oh my gosh, that's heavy. Don't need to do anything. Back together we go. And there we go. Checked on, it turns out 33 colonies. Everybody's alive. So that's not too bad for this yard. Some small clusters. Next time I come through a few of these tiny ones, I might end up either merging with a larger colony with a queen excluder in between to help boost the brood production of the smaller nuke, or I might end up just letting them go and see what happens. We'll see. We will pack up here and head off to another bee yard. There's another pine entrance reducer. It's only a year old and look how much it got chewed down. This does make me wonder if it's more mouse action than bee, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was the bees. They have an amazing ability to chew. Look at that. Yes, you can see how it's, I'm pretty sure that just really looks the way bees chew. We're gonna switch that out with nice hard oak. I think that should help keep the mice at bay. All right, finishing up at another yard here, and 19 of the 19 colonies that were alive in early January are still alive. This is the yard where I've had the worst losses. I lost 2 colonies earlier in the winter. One was that production colony there. You know, it turns out if you run a colony into winter without a queen, sometimes things don't go right. So that was my own fault. And then I lost a nuke, and that was, the colony that had really bad mite resistance. Like it was just, I requeened it, and they rejected my queen and raised their own daughter. And what do you know, of the ones I requeened, I basically split it up. the only one that failed was the one where they kept the same genetics by raising a daughter from the original queen. And all the rest of them, they took the queens I gave them, and they're rocking out still treatment free. So that's genetics for you, I guess. One colony I'm really excited about here, this is a 2023 colony. They're still rocking out. They've scored a 4 twice on the Harbo assay, as in not finding any reproductive mites in the brood. And their last treatment was in 2023. So here we have just lots and lots of mite washes, and the 1s, 2s. Oh, here's one that was 6 and back down to 1. Very last mite wash when there was 0 brood in the colony with 6 mites. I thought they were actually had lost the queen, but I did see her. So fingers crossed, they are looking really good. I'll just go ahead and crack the lid and see what. I mean, good from the entrance. They actually chewed up the entrance reducer. Yep, there's bees. Super duper heavy. Let's see how big this cluster is. Curiosity is getting the best of me. No smoke here, so. Yeah, I think they're pretty strong. And what's awesome is that it's still, even though the bees are up here at the top, this is a heavy, heavy box. They have plenty of stores. Pretty great. One thing I kind of am trying to emphasize a little bit with my videos is I'm very much of I want to be involved kind of beekeeper. I really like being in the hives and manipulating them and stuff. I think in my earlier days when I was splitting heavier and just maybe was in them a little too much, I was stressing them out and I saw more sickness. So I am going through my hives. I'm trying to be a responsible beekeeper in the sense of seeing who's alive. If there's issues like they're starving or something like that, yeah, I'm going to give fondant. But most of them, I am just barely looking for signs of life, make sure they have no stores and move on. I don't want to add boxes. I personally, just personal experience and thinking about the third mind dynamics, if I just took this cluster here, which is actually a pretty weak one, and switched the bottom box up, reversed it or something like that, it's mid-February, I would really stress those bees out. There's no need to be doing that kind of work at this point in the time in Central Virginia. In a few weeks, I'm going to come back along and like this breeder here, they're booming. They have a lot of bees. I'm going to guess that this bottom box is pretty empty. When the maple flow is kicking in and they're bringing in some nectar and things are a little bit warmer, yeah, that's when I start looking at reversing. But it's still winter time, and yes, we do have a nice warm week coming up, but there's a good chance that it'll get cold again. In fact, we know it pretty much will. And putting a lot of space above the bees and messing up their propolis seals too much, all that is stress that they don't really need. So I'm just going to let them be and keep riding through the rest of the winter. And then as we move into the actual spring, when the maples start, kicking out some pollen, guessing that's in about 2 weeks here, probably just because of all the cold, I'm going to guess it'll be around March 1st that we start getting in a good maple pollen. Maybe earlier, we'll see. The last bee yard where I was with Kaya, my daughter, there's a silver maple there that's budding up pretty strong, so it may be a week, but I'm going to guess the red maples, which are the bulk of our maples, are going to be a little later. But we'll find out. I'm not seeing pollen coming into this bee yard at all. Well, this bee yard smells different. It's a friend of mine's farm, and they've got the cows near my bees, so yeah, I'm not smelling the beautiful smells of beehives so much as the manure at the moment, but this yard here is 100% survival, which is good. Last bee yard, I talked about how we don't want to stress the bees by, checking on them, but at the same time, this period, late winter, is when majority of the mortality happens. So I'd say mid-February through mid-March here in Central Virginia is when, the dynamics have shifted within the colony where the population's low. They're having to consume a lot more to keep the brood warm. And thus we have starvation events or some disease sometimes picks up too, but mainly starvation is our main concern. This bee yard looks great except for one. We've got one little colony here, and they needed some food. So they just got it and maybe saved, maybe not, hard to know. As far as starvation, they were borderline, but better be safe than sorry. This is a colony here that's going to be another potential breeder this year, so I want to check in on it. They had their last varroa treatment in 2023, and that looks like food and just a few bees. So let's actually get an idea what they look like. Come in here, kind of working single-handed. let's see what we got here. Oh yeah, super heavy food, don't need feeding, and lots of bees, so that's looking pretty good. Oh, not looking forward to carrying this one home to use as for breeding stock. It's hard for me to graft from queens at out yards and bring them home for breeding purposes. So once I pick my breeders, they'll come home later in the spring. I'm fine leaving them out here for now because there's a lot more forage away from my home yard where I have more bees. I am seeing a little pollen coming in here. I'm seeing a little, I think with the farm fields, we've got a little bit of henbit coming in. So nice, beautiful color. All right, catch y'all later. On to the next yard. Well, just finished going through this bee yard here, and 27 out of 27 are still cranking, looking really strong overall, which is really nice. And maybe 3 of them got some food, so that's good. Gentle bees, didn't have to use the smoker really, and yeah, guess I'm gonna just pack up and head off to the last bee yard for the day. Oh, I did see 2 where, due to my lack of entrance reducers and then getting super busy during the Christmas season, I did not properly protect from mice, and one of them had an acorn right sitting on the front entrance. So, yep, pretty sure I'll see a little comb damage from that, but the hive's alive. That's what really matters the most. Off to the next one. Really like some of these where there's just a feeder plug, so rather than breaking all the propolis seal and letting a big crack in. I can just check for a sign of life by opening up, and yep, looks like they're doing well. I'll be 24 out of 24 alive in this yard. Just went through, fed 4 of them. The rest look really fat and heavy. One little teeny tiny cluster, we'll see how that one does, but if it passes, I'm a-okay by that. This has been actually a remarkable winter after such an incredible cold spell through January where, gosh, we had like a week where our highs were about average lows. So, yeah, significantly colder than typical. And yet the bees seem to have done just dandy through it all, which I think is just phenomenal to observe. Okay, I'm going to jump off here and head home because end of the day, at this point, I've 2 bee yards I haven't gotten to, so that's about 32 colonies that I haven't seen yet this, mid-February. And current hive mortality, I think we're at 5 deaths out of 355 colonies. Could have some of those 2 bee yards, although last check of those, they look great early January, so not anticipating any mortality there, but we'll find out. It's to me, it's just remarkable how resilient the bees are, despite my lack of care at times and putting them through the ringer with some of my trials and trip. But yeah, so very tickled so far to have that kind of mortality or hive survival. And of those 5 were, one was a production colony that was missing a queen, queenless, so that's my fault. The rest were nucs that were very weak. I kind of expected them to go, and they did. So, all right, onward we go.
Hi everyone, thank you for watching my video. I hope you like it, and also you can get 20% off of a new Pants Styles DJ Bee Rapper style, whatever. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.